want to say anything in Italian, then you need to know how to conjugate Italian verbs. It might sound or even look overwhelming at first, but once you learn a few simple patterns, conjugating Italian verbs is facile, easy. So in this lesson, I'm going to be sharing with you how to conjugate Italian verbs in 3 simple steps. And don't worry about taking notes, I've done all that hard work for you. To help you to practice everything you're about to learn here today, make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet with all the vocabulary, example sentences that you'll see in this lesson today. Just click on the link below this video. Pronti? Are you ready? Iniziamo. Let's get started. Ciao, my name is Michelle. That's Michelle with 1 L. Why? Because I was named after my nonno, but I didn't grow up speaking Italian. I learned it as an adult, just like you are. Now I help thousands of students, just like you, do the same thing using my unique 80-20 method. So if you want to learn Italian, to connect with your heritage, and have more authentic travel experiences in Italy, you're in the right place. Now in this lesson, I'm going to go back to basics, because when it comes to language learning, assuming anything is a big mistake. When I first started learning Italian, before I could learn how to conjugate a verb, I had to understand what it was. And many of my students tell me the same thing, that verb conjugation is one of the trickiest parts of learning Italian. But once they go through one of the lessons inside my Intrepid Italian for Beginners A1 course, this is where I share my 3-step method. It finally clicks for them. So that's why I wanted to share this lesson with you today, so you can start seeing the same results. So let's talk about verbs. Now just looking at the word may conjure up negative feelings from boring grammar lessons back at school. You may have even gone your whole adult life and still don't quite know what verbs are. Well, don't worry, I didn't know what they were either. That is, not until I studied Italian. So I'm going to break down this seemingly scary grammatical term to make it super easier for you to understand and remember what verbs are. Why? Because as you learn Italian, you will see similar looking words, but every so often they will have a slightly different ending, which means their meaning will be different too. Without a doubt, learning how to conjugate verbs in Italian is one of the most important and powerful steps in the learning process. So, cominciamo. Let's begin. So, what are verbs? A verb is a word you can place to in front of, like to travel, viaggiare, or to eat, mangiare. Now, these examples are in their full form, which is called the infinitive. The infinitive form of a verb is the unconjugated verb. So what is an unconjugated verb? Well, it's a verb that doesn't tell you who is doing the action. Every time you speak, you change verbs to reflect the subject of the verb. The process of changing verbs is called conjugating. For example, if you say, she's eating a pizza, then she is the subject. She is the person conducting the action. Therefore, in Italian, you couldn't just say mangiare una pizza on its own, because this just means eating a pizza. Instead, you have to conjugate the verb mangiare and say, lei mangia una pizza. She's eating a pizza. Now, it's important to be able to recognize verb infinitives, as this is how they are organized in your common dictionary. Now, let's see how to conjugate Italian verbs in the present tense. Now, in grammatical terms, this is called the present indicative tense. I know it's a bit scary sounding, but try not to focus on this term too much. Now, the indicative tense is the most commonly used mood and tense in everyday conversation, and what we will focus on in this lesson. Now, the present indicative, as the name implies, is used to form statements and questions in the present tense. In other words, things that are happening now. In English, the present tense can be expressed in 3 ways. The simple present, for example, I eat. The present progressive, I am eating. And the emphatic present, I do eat. However, in Italian, we can express all 3 of these meanings just by saying mangio, I eat. That's right, you get all three for the price of one. Now, in Italian, there is no aming, ising, or aring. Have you ever noticed when a native Italian speaker talks, they might say things like, I go tomorrow, or I go now, instead of saying, I'm going tomorrow, or I'm going now. This is because they don't use ing endings in the same way that we do in English to describe what they are doing now in the present and what they are going to do in the future. It might sound like broken English to our ears, but it's 100% correct in Italian. Remember this when you speak Italian. Now let's move on to subject pronouns. What are they? Now, in order to conjugate Italian verbs, we must familiarize ourselves with subject pronouns. Subject pronouns in English are I, you, singular, he, she, it, we, and you, plural, and they. Now, here they are in Italian.
Io, tu, lui, lei, lei, noi, voi, loro.
Now, in Italian, subject pronouns come before the conjugated verb, but their use differs from English. Subject pronouns are only used in Italian to add emphasis to the subject or for clarification. Now, to add a similar emphasis in English, we simply stress the pronoun by increasing our voice slightly. As you will learn in the examples I'm about to share, this subject is already part of the conjugated verb and is represented by the final letters. Now, this is worth repeating. The subject, meaning the thing or person who is doing the action, is represented by the final letters of the verb in Italian. Okay, moving on to verb families. Now, most of the time, Italian verbs follow certain rules. We call these regular verbs. Now, the ones that don't follow the rules are called irregular verbs. Now, all verbs in Italian belong to one of three verb families, which can be easily identified by their endings in the infinitive. We have ere verbs, ire, and are. Now, these endings represent the to part of the verb, as they are always found in the infinitive. Remember, to go, to eat, to travel. Now, this is how you'll be able to identify the infinitive verb. Just look for any of these three final letter combinations. Now, the rules are the same for each family. So after you've learned the pattern for one verb, you'll know how to conjugate all the verbs in that family, as if by magic. Now, the first type of conjugation is the ARE family, which is the largest and most regular. Take a look at this example. We have parlare, which means to speak. The second type of conjugation is the ERE family, which has its own set of rules. For example, we have the verb prendere, to take. The third type of conjugation is the IRE family, which has two methods of conjugation, which we will see later. An example verb in this family is capire, meaning to understand. Okay, now we need to take a look at using the stem to conjugate verbs. Now, if ARE, ERE, and IRE are called the infinitive ending, then what is left is called the stem. In other words, the first part of the verb. By using the stem, you can start to conjugate verbs in 3 simple steps. Now, to conjugate any regular Italian verb in the present tense, all you need to do is keep the stem, drop the infinitive ending, and replace the ending with the appropriate conjugation. Here's how to obtain the stem with the verb chiamare, to call. We take the chiam and we drop the are. For the verb chiudere, which means to close, we take the chiud and we drop the ere. For the verb servire, we keep the serve and we drop the ire. This verb means to need. Now, once you have the stem, you can add the following endings. For the endings of ARE verbs, we use o, I, a, iamo, ate, and ano. With these endings, we can now conjugate the verb parlare, to speak. And we can say, io parlo, I speak. Tu parli, you speak. Lei, lui, lei parla. You, formal, he, she speaks. Noi parliamo, we speak. Voi parlate, you speak. Loro parlano, they speak. Are you enjoying this lesson? Don't let the learning stop here. Make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet, which you'll find a link to in the description below this video. Okay, now let's take a look at the endings for ERE verbs. These endings are o, I, e, iamo, ete, and ono. With these endings, we can now conjugate the verb vendere, which means to sell. Take a look at its conjugation. Io vendo, I sell. Tu vendi, you sell. Lei, lui, lei vende, you formal, he, she sells. Noi vendiamo, we sell. Voi vendete, you sell. Loro vendono, they sell. Now let's take a look at IRE verb endings. Now there are two sets of endings for IRE verbs. The endings for the first form follow a similar pattern to what we've already seen. These are o, I, e, iamo, ite, and ono. With these endings, we can now conjugate verbs like partire, meaning to depart or to leave. Take a look at its full conjugation. Io parto, I depart. Tu parti, you depart. Lei, lui, lei parte. You, formal, he, she departs. Noi partiamo, we depart. Voi partite, you depart. Loro partono, they depart. Now the second form takes the following endings: isco, isci, isce, iamo, ite, iscono. With these endings, we can now conjugate verbs like finire, meaning to finish. Take a look at how it's conjugated in the present tense. Io finisco, I finish. Tu finisci, you finish. Lei, lui, lei finisce. You, formal, he, she finishes. Noi finiamo, we finish. Voi finite, you finish. Loro finiscono, they finish. So you might be wondering, how do you know which set of endings an IRE verb takes? And a good dictionary will give you an indication if the verb goes like finire or partire. Other than that, as with everything else, you learn as you go along. As you learn Italian, take notes of the endings of the verbs and see if you can spot similarities between each family. For example, can you see the pattern that I always ends with an O and we always has iamo? Now, if you're enjoying this lesson, a great study companion alongside it is to use my Intrepid Italian 30-day verbs challenge. This is where you'll master 150 essential Italian verbs in 30 days and finally unblock your Italian with a fun and interactive challenge. For more details on that, just click on the link in the description below this video. Now, what I've shared so far is the core of how you conjugate verbs in Italian in just 3 simple steps. Now, once you master how to do this in the present tense, you'll be able to apply the same logic and principles to all other Italian tenses, including the past tense, which we call the passato prossimo, and even the future tense, which we call the futuro semplice. Now, if you want to learn how to master all Italian tenses, make sure you watch my video lesson right here. Now, to continue your learning and to help you practice everything that you've learned here today, make sure you download your free PDF cheat sheet. Just click on the link in the description below this video. If you enjoyed this lesson, then you'll love Intrepid Italian, my series of online self-paced video courses that break down everything you need to know about Italian using my unique 80-20 method. More details in the description below. Now, as a beginner, there are 24 Italian verbs that you need to know from the beginning. Now, if you want to learn more about that, just click on my video lesson right here. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and if you have, Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on those notifications so you get an alert when I post more video lessons like this one. Until next time, un abbraccio. Ciao!